All right, it's time to dive into our position preview series tonight, starting with the quarterbacks and with the coaching staff. But first, our guys with Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Tompsett along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
Yo, what is going on, Gregory? How are you, man?
It's OTAs, like Buffalo Bills are doing football things technically. Does it count as football things?
Nope, not even close. It doesn't. It's not even close to football things. As you can see,
they do involve a football. Like they do involve a football. That's about the closest it gets.
Yeah. If you are only tuning into the audio side of this and you are not watching the video, my sign this week pretty much sums up how I feel about this period of time in Buffalo Bills season ramp up. It says 10 reasons OTAs are dumb. Click here. I don't even think it's the process of OTAs that I hate. Like I understand what they're doing. They're building foundations. We're talking about it offline, getting these young guys in, acclimated, that type of stuff. To me, it's the reactions from people, the lead up of like 5 things to watch at OTAs. No, there isn't. There is not 5 things to watch. You're not going to draw anything out of this. And then every Tuesday, we're going to get these bits from the media, and they're going to overhype things that ultimately aren't going to matter come August. Maybe some of it will, but even Sean McDermott sort of pushed back on some of that with, hey, like in the past, I've gotten too hyped on guys that did well in OTAs and bought into that too much. And it's not real. Like, you know, he pushed back on that a little too. So we'll talk about it if anything pops up, but we were saying like, is there even really anything to talk about going into it? And right now in terms of OTAs, not much.
So you're saying your stock is up on OTAs? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well,
we were talking pre-show, like literally what could you possibly take away? And I'd said, sometimes who lines up where is interesting. Christian Benford's still at corner. They're talking about he's definitively working there. They're not moving him to safety right now, although they did definitively use language like not right now or possibly.
Butler was like he is in this battle currently.
Correct. And I like the fact that this is one of the only chances we get to hear from guys like John Butler. That was one of the pressers I definitely listened closely to. Dorian Williams starting out at middle linebacker was a little bit of a pivot from some of the early comments. I know McDermott then hedged right after the draft saying he'll learn both. And now all of a sudden it's no, he's starting out at middle linebacker and learning from there. I joked pre-show, like if they lined up the first team offense and David Edwards was the first guy in at guard, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. But it's really hard to take anything away from here. I don't mind that Dalton Kincaid's getting some reps with Josh Allen. I don't mind that, we get to see freaking gazelle like Justin Shorter trotting down the sideline, but this is also Derrick Rogers season. This is
Justin Shorter season.
This is David Sills season. This is, Tavon Austin looked awesome when there were no pads on. So there's just not a ton to take away from anything here other than like, hey, hope everybody shows up, nobody gets hurt, and it's a good team building opportunity.
Yeah, and I agree with Rick here in the chat saying, OTAs are beautiful because it's the start of everything. Yes, I love pictures of Josh Allen and his visor coming out, just like every single Bills fan does. I also like seeing him throw the ball to Dalton Kincaid. All that stuff's good. It means we're getting closer. It means we can start planning our trip for going to camp. We were talking about that. Like all that stuff's piling up. It's ramping up. Again, my problem is just like, let's not try to create something that's not there in stories of guys stocks rising and things like that in OTA process. We have all summer for that, and that's really where it's going to shake out. One interesting thing we talked about the John Butler interview. I agree, I loved it. I am wondering if the Bills are going to have to put somebody out there because Sean McDermott is going to do his head coaching weekly stuff anyway, and they have the coordinators. Will they roll out a Wilkes or a Butler, or is this just an OTA thing, do you think?
My very first thought when Butler was out there was, is he getting the pseudo defensive coordinator reps? Like, that was literally the first thing out of my mind, because he was the only position coach that went out for one. So I have no idea, but I'm going to read into that like he's going to get the pseudo defensive coordinator reps from a presser standpoint, which is cool, because I think that's actually
on the
a
job
good
training
nod to him, because he's one that, like, people have gone to, you were a huge advocate of Bob Babich. People obviously connected some of the dots with Eric Washington's previous experience. I had talked about don't look past a fast rise from Bobby Babich, but you talk about the success of this defense over the past 5 or 6 years. The defensive backfield is the reason that it's been so good. Yeah. So, like, I like that John Butler's getting some flowers here and getting a chance to shine a little bit more. And I like the fact that when Sean McDermott, and we'll talk about this when we get talk about our coaching position previews and get into his role, when he talked about the guys helping him make the defensive game plan, he only listed 2 names, and he talked about Al Holcomb and he talked about John Butler. And I like that they are the names that came up, and that they're going to be the guys helping him build that game plan.
Yeah, and it's really cool because we've seen the Bills do this. They want their coaching staff and everyone to go on and succeed, whether it's with the Bills or not. And even if this doesn't go on throughout the season, getting those reps in the press conferences, like, it doesn't seem like much, but if you're trying to get your name out there and into the National Football League, that you want to become a defensive coordinator or be in consideration for that, whether or not you think it matters, how you handle yourself in those types of situations and interviews and stuff like that matters. So getting those reps in for a guy like that, that's a big deal, because those are things you can't replicate. Like, you can't replicate a real press conference about the defense. So OTAs for everybody, right? Everybody's going through reps.
So before we dive into the meat of this show, we want to talk real quick about something that's important to us here at Cover One, and that is our Cover One OnePass membership. It's just a great opportunity for us to be able to share what we do. People ask all the time what you can do to be able to help us out. This is the best way to be able to help support us. Sign up for OnePass to become a OnePass member. You get, this awesome t-shirt and decal. You're able to jump in and get you get a signed letter from Aaron and Eric and I. But I know one of our favorite parts is the Slack channel, and I really think that's where the value comes in.
Yeah, it's a great community. I know a lot of people get frustrated with the interactions on Twitter. It's not for everybody. I talk to a lot of people that aren't on there and they're looking for a community to join. Facebook's not for them. They don't love social media. A lot of our Slack members are the same way, and it's a really good community that's constant. And if you are not on those other social media sites, you're not going to miss out if you are a part of the Slack channel, because people post to there if there's the news that you need to see, not all the junk that you need to see. And so it's constant Bills, and it'll keep you updated. And I brag about Cover One quite often, and our team that we put together. I'm very proud of all the lineup that we put together. But, I'm actually probably most proud of is that community that we built. I think we have the smartest, most intelligent, most understanding of what is going on with this team fan base out of anybody. And if you join this community and jump into that Slack channel, I think you'll see it immediately.
Yeah. It's actually shocking how much, like, when you have oddball comments or things like that, how much it stands out and people jump in on it, because it's a really informed group, and it's fantastic. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we will jump in, and I did a lot of analysis here, diving through a lot of different metrics. We have access. We talk about what the OnePass helps support. You guys help us pay for our memberships to Football Outsiders and Sports Info Solutions and the advanced metrics from PFF. And I got to tell you, as I dug through all this, Josh Allen's pretty good.
Is he? Did that all come up?
I did. It was amazing. Josh Allen is a good quarterback. I couldn't believe it. I just didn't know that was going to be the case. And as I found my takeaways, he's good at football. He is.
Yeah, I mean, we can end the show now. Right now, it's great. The way Josh ended the season last year wasn't fantastic, but he still is a top 3 quarterback. And I was having this conversation. Our friend Glenn Goodberry, he posted something on some Bengals fan. There was a list of quarterbacks. I think it was from one of the guys at PFF.
Yeah, they had Allen 2 and they had Burrow 3.
Correct. And the Bengals fan guy was like, "You got to be kidding me. There's no chance on earth that this is that." But it really is that conversation. I think as Bills fans, we need to just say now that Patrick Mahomes is a full step ahead of everybody else.
He is.
Right? Like, it's not. I know a couple years ago we were trying to make that conversation of, hey, Allen is right there with Mahomes. He's not. He's not right there with Mahomes. Mahomes different. He's the Michael Jordan of this league right now at the quarterback position, but that's okay. And I do think Burrow and Allen are right there, nipping at the heels. They're not super far off. He's a step ahead. They can do some of those things and be special like him. But arguing over who's better, it's a tier. And Josh Allen is in that top tier. You can add some other guys in that tier if you want. I think there's some arguments for other players in the league. But in terms of the resumes, what they've done in big games. I know Josh Allen hasn't won all the big games, if you believe in QB wins. He hasn't won all of them, but he's won some good big games and played very well in big games. And so he's right there with anybody, like you said, any analytics, any metrics, all national media, all analysts are saying that he's in that top tier. So I think that debate's far beyond us. And we need to stop taking the bait on when I did it today, when some guy's like, Josh Allen isn't even special, and I still took the bait. I'm mad at myself for like, we're beyond this now. I got to be past this. That just like, let people talk nonsense. They sound stupid. They look stupid. I don't need to point that out.
Yeah. And if you look just some of the raw statistics, 3 straight years with 4,400, 4,500 yards, 35, 36, 37 touchdowns. The last couple years, every year, 500, 600, 700 rushing yards, another 6, 7, 8 rushing touchdowns, just every single year. The last 2 years have been weirdly similar, like 122 rushes for 763 yards, then 124 rushes for 762 yards. He's had 63.3% completion percentage the last 2 years in a row, like 37, 36, 35 touchdowns. He's kind of leveling into, hey, he's just an elite quarterback. He's just going to be this level. And of course, everyone has a bad taste in their mouth from the last game, including Josh Allen. He's talked about how frustrated he is with that last game. We've talked about it was one of the worst games he's played since his rookie year. He deserves some criticism for a terrible playoff performance and being in that spot. It doesn't take away from the fact that he was still a fantastic quarterback.
And we're not in that spot.
Yeah, we're not even.
Yeah, we're not. And Von Miller spoke to that and talked about Stephon Diggs missing OTAs here, which isn't also not a story. But saying that they're like, if it's not Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, like none of this is going on for us. Like they are what drives this ship. Hey, Greg, if you get a chance here, go into the Slack. I just sent you a message. I probably should have done this before the show, but here we are. It is a tweet from Summer Sports. If you can pull that up for our viewers when you get a chance here. Joe Marino shared this. That's how it came across my timeline earlier this week. And it's a fantastic chart here showing how quarterbacks perform in pure passing situations, 2021 to 2022. I think it's blocking right now. But obviously here, Patrick Mahomes, for those who can't see, Patrick Mahomes way ahead in EPA drop back when expected to pass over everyone else. But Josh Allen's number 2, Joe Burrow's right there with him, and Jimmy Garoppolo. And then you see a big drop off. I don't know what Jimmy Garoppolo is doing up there, but shout out to Shanahan.
I would say, that's a Kyle Shanahan bar right there.
Side note, what's so weird is he's such a genius, but it doesn't seem like he can actually evaluate the quarterback position.
So weird.
That's such a weird
look
one.
what he did with Brock Purdy too. So.
But if you give him
want to fight with the Bengals fans, show him this, because this doesn't even count rushing value.
Correct.
That like, hey, and
and this is when you were expected to be passing, when defenses know you're going to be passing in those situations, when there's a 70% chance that you're passing, which makes it harder to have success.
And they want to say, well, look at the last game they played. Well, the last game that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen played, Josh Allen won. It's not the reason that we're saying that he's better than Patrick Mahomes. Like that's right. It's one game. Like that's not how that works. But I think the important part, and a couple fans are bringing this up in the chat, the fact that both us and Bengals fans, 2 long-suffering franchises, have guys that they wouldn't trade for anyone is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm comfortable acknowledging that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the world. I wouldn't trade Josh Allen for anything. No, I wouldn't trade Josh Allen for any player in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes included, because he's our guy. I want him to be the one that brings us our first Super Bowl. I don't want to go get the other guy who already won somewhere else and then have him win here. I want Josh Allen to be the guy that wins it. And I know and can say with confidence, I think he's capable of doing that because every advanced metric says that. We had other really smart people come on this show. Kevin Cole, one of the brightest analytical minds in football, talking about the fact that at worst, the Bills are tied for the best team in the league. Yep. And that, you're one of those teams. And that's all you can ask is going into the season, you have a chance. You need all those things to turn out right. You need a draft class to hit. You need health, luck. You need some of those, all the crazy drama that was involved in our last season with historic storms and rescheduling things. Yeah. And then obviously the anxiety that the DeMar Hamlin situation added on to everything. You need not to, endure those events. But having a guy like Josh Allen gives you a chance every year, and we have him. He's at the peak of his powers. He's just turned 27 years old, and, we're going to be in that spot for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about it here a little bit later. There's some evolution happening in this offense for him too. Like I was frustrated with the way that Bengals game went, just like everybody else was. I'm very frustrated with the comments from Isaiah McKenzie talking about the game plan and the snow. Don't want to hear from you.
Yeah. Guess who didn't contribute to anything in that game?
Yeah,
Isaiah McKenzie.
And sure, I think I had some arguments with fans on that talking point that, like, hey, the game plan wasn't great. My point is the plays were there to be made, right? Yeah. We can fire up the film right now, and I can show you 3 or 4 big time explosive plays that changed that way that game's going. Yeah. That were just missed, flat out missed, mostly on Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But also baked into some of this is that was Ken Dorsey's first time in a real big spot against the high quality defensive coordinator in the playoffs. And that is a different.
Lou Anarumo beat him. It doesn't mean that he's never going to be able to come back.
It's growing. It's going to work. We heard Sean McDermott talk about how Ken Dorsey and Josh Allen working together. We heard Josh Allen talking about some of the influence he's had in that room with Ken Dorsey. So there's going to be some growing there too. And Josh talked about it on his own press conference, just some of the things he has to clean up of, hey, I used to be just hey, get open and I'll get you the ball. And that does work to a certain point. You put up big numbers and you get good stats, but he needs to be able to, when the defense gives him the look that Dorsey wants, get to the guy, get to the read, be to the spot that the players need to be at, and cleaning those things up. And I think if he does unlock some of that and he and Dorsey get a little more on the same page, and we'll talk about some of the other stuff that this offense could unlock, I mean, this could go to a whole nother level that we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah. And, it's areas that we'll get into some in the coaching here in a moment, but just some final things on Josh Allen. Even in the advanced metrics last year, people talking about that wasn't his best season. He was still number 2 in QBR, number 1 in the Alex rating that Sports Info Solutions uses, which is consistently going past the sticks and not coming up short on different plays. 4th in adjusted completion percentage, the defense adjusted yards that they use, still top 5 in all of those, which takes away any of the rushing impact that he has, and still had them as the number 2 DVOA offense in the NFL. So it's even with what most people wouldn't consider his best season, they were still unbelievable. And just being in that kind of spot where, like I said, what he's kind of leveled into as just every year is going to be 500, 700 rushing yards, 4,300 to 4,600 passing yards, 35 to 38 touchdowns, and manageable interceptions. He's kept those in the same range pretty much every year of his career.
Yeah.
All of those pieces, that's what gives you a chance to have a championship level, roster opportunity in season, and we have that with Josh Allen.
And I saw another, I wish I would pulled up all these tweets before the show. I saw another one of where he's like the Iron Man right now of starting quarterbacks in the league, and he probably should have taken 3 weeks off last year. If we're being honest, it probably would have helped him long term in hindsight. But
since that original UCL injury his rookie year, he's never missed a game.
And he just and the way he plays, people have made a big point about that this offseason of he's got to take less hits, all that stuff. He only gets hurt in the pocket. Yep. First of all, he's never really taken, knock on wood.
He delivers more.
He delivers more. Yeah.
Takes.
But for the style of play that he does to have a good starting record like that is fantastic. And Greg, here, before we move on, should we introduce people? So this one won't probably apply as much as the other positional previews here, but in the past, we've done the Lofton exercise. And if you guys haven't been here for that, basically the Lofton exercise is when the season's over, we look through the roster and kind of, it's, you find at the different spots are players that you can win because, players that are good enough to win with, and that you need better at other positions. So for this exercise, as we go through the positional breakdowns, we're going to do it on a scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah.
5 being you win because of, just straight up, this person can elevate your team and you win because of them. 4 is good enough to win with, potential to be a number 5. So kind of that in between where the Lofton doesn't give you that sort of leeway. 3 is good enough to win with. 2, need better, but potential to be a number 3. And then 1 is you need better at that position. So what would you say Josh Allen is for you?
So on a scale of 1 to 5, I had him as a 37.
Oh my God, so hot.
So
I mean,
you know, he defies the reason for this. He not only is a number 5, he's arguably the strongest number 5 in the entire league. Like I think that if you talk about like genuinely the most valuable player, and you remove, even like we talked about, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. He is phenomenal. But if you remove him with Andy Reid and everything else still there, like I don't know. Like I almost think it's a bigger impact to lose Josh Allen. He is the most win because of any player in the NFL. And unfortunately, it's a pretty significant drop when you go to Kyle Allen and Matt Barkley. I had them both as 1s. I had both of them as a 1. I couldn't bring myself to even put Allen as a 2. I have them both as a need better. But I've also come to grips with, I look at the contracts that like Taylor Heineke got this offseason, getting like $10 million. And, you know, other, like in the past years, it's been the Tyrod Taylor contracts. It's been the Jacoby Brissett contracts. And just, this roster is good enough that we can go 2-2 in a 4-game span with Kyle Allen in there. It's not so good that if we lost Josh Allen for the rest of the season, it would matter anyways. So the amount of money it would take to sign, you know, of course, if I could get a better backup quarterback for also super cheap, sure, of course I would want that. And getting Mitch Trubisky real cheap was great that 1 year. Yeah. I don't know that there's a scenario that matters where I want to spend the extra money for something that, like, I don't know, is it actually going to matter? None of them are Josh Allen. Jacoby Brissett's probably the best backup you can get right now. Does he actually matter? Like, are we going to actually do anything with him? And if we lose Josh Allen for any extended period of time, it doesn't matter anyway. So I'd rather be like, screw it, just get guys to help him in the quarterback room. This team goes as far as Josh takes them.
Absolutely. You're not wrong. I think I thought of this for the guys under Josh a little differently to the role that they have to be.
Okay. That's
not
fair.
that Kyle Allen as a starting QB, because I agree he's a 1 at that, but 4, I have him as a 2, where I think we probably need a little bit of a better backup. I'd rather go 3-1 than 2-2 in that stretch you're talking about, right? But I think he might be able to be that. You mentioned it was good to get Mitch Trubisky that year. I don't know that Mitch Trubisky is a much better backup than Kyle Allen, to be honest. I think
we probably told ourselves he was better
because of what he was picked. He was picked high. He was picked early. There was he was supposed to be good. He was on a team that was good, but I mean, he didn't look very good with the Steelers last year. And Kenny Pickett really outshined him. And Kyle Allen, and you sort of pushed back on this earlier in the offseason when we were talking about his addition, that he might be a little bit better than I thought in terms of, like, he's gotten some reps. He might be able to be a decent backup in this league, and a guy that bounces around as a journeyman backup, which he could earn that right here with Josh. And so I think he's a 2, and Matt Barkley's a 1. We know what he is. He's a practice squad, just there to welcome families and be the ambassador for the Bills and be Josh Allen's friend.
Yeah. And so the 1 year that Kyle Allen actually got a shot to play, he had 1 season in Carolina in 2019, and he was okay.
Yeah.
Like it was 62%,
and not a good team.
62% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Actually went 5-7, which is actually probably a pretty good achievement for as bad as that team was. So he was okay. Like he was a solid, had some athleticism, ran around a little bit. So he was okay. He didn't have, like, Case Keenum actually had some pretty good NFL seasons where I mean, he went like 13-3 one year. Trubisky had a pretty good season with the Bears there. So, like, I liked the idea of being the team that cycled through whoever the next Andy Dalton Tyrod, Case Keenum, like the guy who had a chance to start and now is kind of embracing the fact that he's not going to start anymore.
Mhm.
So, but he still wants a paycheck. Like, I kind of like that idea. I would have rather that we got like the Sam Darnold or
Yeah.
someone like that. But I don't know that Kyle Allen is as big of a drop off as what we think, because again, any of those guys, like setting the bar at, I don't know why I keep leaning on Jacoby Brissett, but like leaning
Because he was
on
the best
that,
available this
yeah,
year.
whoever like that, like, hey, he actually probably is better than one of these other youngsters. He's probably better than Desmond Ridder or someone like that who's going to start games, but he's also not good enough to invest in. Like, he's still not. We're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jacoby Brissett. So if Josh Allen gets hurt for the year, it doesn't matter anyways. And if it's anything shorter than that, our roster is good enough that I don't know there's a huge difference between what we do with Jacoby Brissett versus Kyle Allen. So it is what it is. And maybe there's upside that Allen surrounded with this roster can be a little more functional than that. We'll see.
Yeah, I will say for backup to come in, it doesn't matter who it is. Everyone wants that type of backup that will be able to do the same things Josh Allen does. I know a lot of people want that. Like, there isn't anyone in the world that we can get to do that. So
isn't available.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to dumb down the offense a little bit anyway. Now is probably the best time for the Buffalo Bills offense to ever have to have a backup play, because you have security blankets at the running back position. You have 2 security blankets at the tight end position. Like, you could probably simplify this offense with the playmakers you have and still move chains.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be the dynamic that Josh does. It could be a game manager offense with the type of weapons you have, which might play favor to Kyle Allen being a little bit better than maybe we think if he's needed.
If anything, this has brought me around closer. I was further away from this the last couple of years, but now that Josh was going into year 6 and we're seeing where this is, I'm now getting closer to, screw it. We might as well take a flyer later in the draft and just see if you hit on some like backup caliber. Like, hey, maybe you accidentally find a Kirk Cousins. Maybe you accidentally find a whoever that is actually a functional, like playable quarterback, a Taylor Heineke kind of guy. And that, oh, hey, now we have a 4-year contract. Or you actually stumble into, oh, you might have a Jimmy Garoppolo tradable asset of things that, like, I'm probably now in the business of day 3 quarterback lottery ticket stuff where, like, hey, is there really a difference between whoever that 4th round pick is versus a Kyle Allen? Because they're both cheap. And if one's good, we at least get 3 more years out of it. Like, I'm probably
Josh likes golfing with Kyle Allen, though.
He does. Well, Kyle Allen can then go to the like 3rd quarterback guy who gets cut and ends up on the practice squad, but still gets to hang out the whole time.
Right.
Because Barkley can only do that for so long. So at some point they can switch spots and then we'll go from there. All right. Any other final thoughts on the position group for quarterbacks here before we switch to the coaching staff?
Josh looks good.
He looks good.
Shorts, good red visor. I feel good about it.
God, that visor looks cool. I wish I wasn't just a 12-year-old, but it looks so cool.
That is awesome.
All right. The next one is the coaching staff, and we're not going to go down. We actually joked as Aaron and I were getting ready for the show and doing our prep. We were going to do a game of like name 2 Bills assistant coaches and spot the lie. And I was going to just ask, like, hey, who
human
here? We'll try one here. I'm going to name 3 coaches. 2 of them are real, 1 is a lie. Marcus West, Will Greenberg, Jason Osvart. Which one is the lie?
I'm gonna say the Osvarts for real, a person, because I don't think you didn't just make that up. What was the other names?
Will Greenberg, Marcus West.
I'm gonna say Will Greenberg is also a real person.
No, it's a trick question. They're all Bills coaches.
Okay.
So it's like there's going to be guys like that they cycle through the staff and that come in here. Those were assistant defensive line coach Marcus West, and 2 assistant strength and conditioning coaches, which is probably a stretch.
I'm big on strength and conditioning guys.
Yeah, I know you know them intimately. So obviously there were some changes this year. I am a little bit curious. Joe Dana coming in as the new safeties coach, coming from Houston. Adam Henry coming in as the new receivers coach, probably the most impactful one of the new coaches, because obviously we know how highly, that he was thought of, coming in, Henry replacing the previous wide receiver coaches, like a impactful position. And now all of a sudden, stepping into that role. And we'll talk about some of the other guys that maybe have to have the most, pressure from where they're at. Al Holcomb also coming in,
that's a fun one.
Senior defensive assistant, former defensive coordinator, and that kind of speaks into, let's start on the defensive side of the ball. What are your expectations for this Sean McDermott led defense? Because I have a feeling you and I are more excited than what other people seem to be. Like,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. I mean, everyone knows it's no secret. I love Leslie Frazier. I love this Bills defense. Philosophically, this Bills defense is fun. Personally, I prefer the crazy blitzing, really super aggressive defenses, but this is a really fun defense to see how they attack opponents. And that's what I'm really most curious to see, is maybe we get some merging of things that I like a little bit more with the base. The base philosophy is not going to change. John Butler was even talking about that, right? Like, he was talking about some of these guys coming in for year 3. He's coaching the same philosophy to the defensive back. So that tells me structurally the defense isn't going to change all that much in terms of the responsibility. What's going to change is how they attack the quarterback in pressures, where they're sending guys from. It's not going to be, Taron Johnson's responsibility in coverage is still going to be Taron Johnson's responsibility in coverage. What Poyer and Hyde do in those games and this guy's coverage in the back is still going to look a lot the same for the Bills. It's going to be some wrinkles and really changing tendencies, and in certain spots, where do they bring some pressure, those types of things. And obviously what they're going to do with the middle linebacker spot has to change, because you don't have a Tremaine Edmonds freak pterodactyl in the middle of the field anymore. So, but all those changes feel exciting to me, because I agree with Eric Turner that as much as I love this defense and philosophically, it has become stale over the last year and a half, 2 years, and it needed a change. And while Sean McDermott didn't want Leslie Frazier to leave, I think the timing couldn't have been better to force the change and get him back in there to make some, whether it's them getting more aggressive or not, to make some type of change that this defense isn't stale, and teams can't just sit there like the Bengals did in that game and just pick them apart and find the open spots in these zones. So, we won't be able to use Leslie Frazier as a scapegoat anymore. That's also exciting. And I think it puts the pressure on Sean McDermott to show that he really is the mastermind defensive guy that everybody around the league says he is.
Quick shout out to Andrew Barnes and his lovely wife who are watching the show. Andrew wants you to know he loves you very much. So I'm really excited about the combination. One, I like that there's pressure on Sean McDermott. 2, I think people underestimate how, like, I'll talk about it as like for F1 fans, maybe, that you can have the same team building a car and it's going to perform at that level. And the car is going to be what the car is. But if you put a different driver in it, you're going to get slightly different results. And that building the game plans, building the scheme, understanding how they want to approach things, having a different person making 60 different decisions during the game of what defense he's calling each play and how he reacts to different scenarios, and how he, talk about how insanely prepared and meticulous McDermott is. I like the idea that he's now the guy nitpicking the other offense and looking for weaknesses and looking for ways. And if you go back and look at his Philadelphia and his Carolina teams, he ran base nickel, he ran a high level of zone, but he brought a lot more pressure and blitzed more than Leslie Frazier did. And I'm excited to see that. And I'm excited about, I think, the combination that we're going to see. Also, losing Tremaine Edmonds isn't a good thing for the defense, but having Tremaine Edmonds from a coverage standpoint was such like a safety blanket.
It was a crutch.
Like that. Like, well, we can't take him out of there. Look at how much ground he covers. You got to let him keep doing that. Not having him forces you to move a few more of the other chess pieces around that. Okay, now we can't always drop Micah and Jordan back as far as we do. And hey, Taron, we might need you to do this, or Matt, we might need you to do that. And also we can blitz the linebackers more because we're not always depending on having to drop him into that middle zone coverage. The whole combination, losing Tremaine, Sean McDermott stepping in, Sean McDermott feeling the pressure of having to step in, Sean McDermott being that insanely over-prepared, meticulous, nth degree kind of guy. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I think it's going to be better than fans realize.
Yeah, and I think, I just talked about the timing of Leslie Frazier's departure being good for the Bills, even though I think a lot of fans piled on him. I don't think it's actually good to lose a coach like that at any point, but good in that it forced their hand to make McDermott take this over. Tremaine Edmonds leaving, also, you're getting a guy that's now more aggressive of a coach, but now you're dealing with linebackers that you're forced to deal with their strengths. And some of the strengths of these linebackers, they're undersized, but they're missiles, right? Yeah. Like that's the idea is they can blitz, they can get
either
in there,
one, whether it's Dorian Williams, whether it's Terrell Bernard,
Correct.
whether it's Terrell Dotson, they at least have that downhill force, being able to just shoot gaps.
Add Taylor Rapp to this, right?
Yeah,
playing around the line of scrimmage. And so your personnel also
that just got me
leans toward a more
blitzing Taylor Rapp.
Yeah. Taron Johnson, Taylor Rapp, who's coming? I don't know. But your personnel is also leaning towards where we think Sean McDermott is going, which is the idea of blitzing in more aggressive nature from that front seven.
Yeah. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see. I also am interested to see who has a voice in that. What do we see? Our assumption at the beginning that, hey, John Butler is officially listed as the passing game coordinator. That's his official title. Al Holcomb is listed as the senior defensive assistant.
So is Washington.
Eric Washington
those, right?
is senior defensive assistant, defensive line. So the only one that has the word coordinator in the title is John Butler. So I'm curious when they do get into that in training camp and other spots where you have the traditional Ken Dorsey and used to be Leslie Frazier, is John Butler going to be the guy sitting in that chair? That'll be interesting to see, but I'm still excited. They've talked about how nice it was to get McDermott back in the room. McDermott was actually on with Pat McAfee earlier and was talking about, you could see how juiced up he was getting back into this, and that he's the kind of guy that he's a control freak. Obviously, he is probably, we've joked about this all the time. He's probably not the most fun guy to work for. He's just a crazy try hard, hardo guy all the time and like super intense about everything. But you can tell getting away from the roots of football and like the actual hands-on coaching, I think it's kind of re-energized him a little bit, and that he's now has to balance having those overall game planning kind of things, and that brings in some of the other things like Mark Lubick, who's the game management coach, the assistant quarterback coach, and kind of does some of that game management. And then you talk about the staff that does some of the other pieces,
the analytics stuff,
with the analytics side of things. I'm
great guy to work for. He also made a comment on that, McAfee, that as you get the right people in, they start to recommend the right people.
Correct.
As well, right? So we talk about culture a lot. They talk about all this stuff and building it. Nobody, I think, in that building thinks he's not great to work for, because they're all a bunch of Sean McDermotts, right? Like he's gotten the people underneath him that know the process. They've worked with him in the past, and they're a bunch of Sean McDermotts out there right now. And he spoke very highly of this staff. And I do think, bringing in a Holcomb was a move that is a good move, to have a guy that's called defenses, that has some steady work with Sean McDermott, knows what he wants out of this defense, how to build the game plan for this type of defense. He's going to lean on this staff quite a bit. Butler, Holcomb, as much as we don't love Washington, he has also been a play caller with a similar type defense, similar type philosophy. So he's not scared. While he is a control freak, I think he's brought in enough people that he's worked with and trusts, that he's also not scared to put some of this on those other guys. So I'm interested to see who takes what and the responsibilities, but ultimately, he's going to have hands on, and he's going to be more aggressive. Pat even was like, all right, is this going to get juiced up? You know what I mean? And Sean had to basically pull himself back from being like, yeah.
And I should be more clear. I think if you're kind of a lazy or just like a go with the flow kind of person, then he's probably not that fun to work for. If you're like a very meticulous, organized, detailed OCD kind of person, he's probably fine. He probably works great. It's probably really good to work with. All right, let's flip over to the other side of the ball, where there was a lot last year where I think you and I have tried to share more of it's hard for blame, because we just talked about number 2 DVOA offense, second highest scoring offense in the league, scored the exact same amount of points per game as the Brian Daboll offense the year before, but whatever blame
and less variance.
Correct. Yeah, actually more consistent. They didn't have the 6-point Jaguars games and the shellacking from the Colts.
Right.
Going the other direction, people, I think, place too much blame on Ken Dorsey and
Mhm.
not enough in Josh Allen that, hey, when the play call comes in, the play call from Ken Dorsey isn't, hey, chuck it deep to Gabe Davis on this play. Like, Josh is making a read and making that decision. With that aside, there are things that Ken Dorsey needs to improve on. There
Mhm.
are things that we need to see better utilization of. Some of the easy stuff. We got away from too much pre-snap motion. We got away from things like play action, where we know those are easy buttons in the NFL that, hey, you do those more, they produce better results. Those are things you should be leaning on and utilizing more. What are your thoughts going into this season of what you want to see from Ken Dorsey and what areas you want him to improve on?
Yeah, first of all, I got a lot of pushback this offseason because Stephon Diggs made some comments. Like, basically, I think he said, once we got to around week 9, the offense felt changed and like that they were struggling. I actually thought Ken Dorsey got a little bit better as the year went on. I won't lie. I was very frustrated early on. I think he got a little better as the year went on. I'm not saying he got great, and I agree with you. He should have implemented more of the things that worked under Dable, and more of the things that worked for specific players, and utilizing the talent that they have. Dawson Knox, man. Like, I know everybody wants to talk about Don Kincaid, but Dawson Knox is a legit weapon on this team.
Yeah.
Very underutilized last year. Gabe Davis, the type of utilization for Gabe Davis, the narrative around Gabe Davis mostly this offseason isn't because of the player himself. In my opinion, is how he was used in the inefficient route running that he was doing, and the looks that he was getting lead to an inefficient stat line that you're going to see. So getting easier stuff, making it easier on Josh, getting those reads right. Like you said, Josh had that injury, so the middle of the field stuff that got taken out. That's some of your more efficient stuff. I want to make it simpler. Ken Dorsey has a lot to prove, and adding some of that stuff back in, and they have done a really good job of adding a more physical nature to this team that I don't think they had last year. And that's going to give them that type of versatility to add play action back into what they're doing. Because play action, I disagree with the analytics community that you don't need to run the ball to get play action. I think you have to establish physicality to get play action. I think you have to get the defense knowing that you're willing to run it, willing to get physical in order for them to come up and bring up safeties and get those guys to creep up a little bit, so that play action, maybe you don't need the run for play action to work, but for it to work better, the defense has to be thinking that you're really going to do it. And I think they're adding to those depth pieces in ways that's going to give them that flexibility. I don't know if Ken Dorsey can use it. Eric Turner and Anthony did a pretty good job breaking down some of what he and Shula were doing in Carolina. That leads me to think that the new 2 tight end set is going to be a real thing. I don't think that we're just pulling that out of our butts here, that he's going to use that more. There is some data that shows, he would prefer to run some of this stuff. They just didn't have what they needed last year to run it. So I do think it's a weird one to, we keep hearing Josh Allen and Brandon Beane has said it about the statistics of this offense and how good they were. It's a little inflated. A lot of that happened in spite of Ken Dorsey being the play caller. That's just Josh Allen being fantastic guy that can put a team on his back in key moments, and having Stephon Diggs. You better have huge statistics with those types of players. But he also wasn't the lame duck coordinator and some like awful, terrible coordinator that people think. It's refining. And this was my concern with Ken Dorsey the whole time in this window of, we all just assumed if Dable left, we'll just pop Dorsey in there. He knows Allen and everything will just click. It's different, man. When you have a first year on a job and the bullets are flying for real and you're having to make those decisions in the booth, in the game, like, you can do all the preparing you want, but nothing's going to really prepare you for it like the actual experience of doing it. So we should have known there'd be growing pains with the first year play caller. And I think we just kind of threw that out the window once the season got started and just expected that it was going to be fantastic. And the data, the analytics were good. It just didn't feel right.
Well, the hard part was, it's hard to remember the moments in the season. 6 weeks into the year when the Bills were 5-1 and had just beaten the Chiefs and, were the number one in every metric, and that Josh Allen was the runaway MVP favorite. At that point, we were legitimately discussing, oh my God, did we accidentally upgrade at offensive coordinator? And I would say the same things about, like, hey, there were there's hindsight praise of Brian Daboll that annoys me. I love Brian Daboll as a person. I think
we fought
awesome.
that for years.
He was really, really good. I literally would fight Drew Gear on a weekly basis about that. Hey, Brian Daboll's not as bad as you're making him out to be. And that some of that offensive success was because of Josh Allen in spite of Brian Daboll. The same way that some of it was because of Josh Allen in spite of Ken Dorsey. And Daboll contributed to it, and Ken Dorsey contributed to it. We have this weird hindsight that Brian Daboll was this flawless offensive game planner.
Oh my God, there's so many fire Daboll hashtags. The fight against trying to run that guy out of town until the playoffs. Really, it was he didn't shut everybody up until the end of that season. I mean, that Carolina game. There was a bunch of stinkers he put up.
2 games before that the perfect playoff game against the Patriots. That Falcons game was the second to last game of the year. We were horrible.
If Matt Ryan didn't mess up,
if he didn't gift us that game.
I agree with you that the hindsight unfair. I am willing. I think my leash on Dorsey is a little bit bigger than others too. If we're doing a rating here, like we did for the players, I would have Dorsey as a 3, which is good enough to win with. I think he's on par with most offensive coordinators league wide. Here's another conversation. We talk about wanting like these high-end top offensive coordinators. There aren't a lot of brilliant.
Once you drop down after like Shanahan and Reed and maybe
McDaniel,
I don't know, like McDaniel, like once you get past like the top handful, I don't know, like they're
fine.
There's an awful lot of guys who look real good when you have a great quarterback. I'm real curious, like how great does Matt LaFleur look now that he has Jordan Love instead of Aaron Rodgers? Like, are you really that good? We're going to find out. So there's a lot of things like that we'll see where it goes. Ken Dorsey has more to prove. He needs to improve, but I also think it's silly to think that he was going to be some finished product. It was the first year ever calling plays. He had never called plays in the NFL in any level of football. It was his first time calling plays. So I think it's very logical that, of course he's going to have some level of improvement and some self-evaluation and some lessons learned and some areas he wants to improve on. And for me, it was those points I brought up at the beginning. I want more easy button. I want lean into the things that all of the data and numbers tell you work. You want to know what we see across the league, every team, even bad teams, pre-snap motion helps you and it works. Play action works. Passing out of 12 and 21 personnel works. Play action on first down specifically works. Like those are things that we know unequivocally, regardless of how good your team is. Those are things that work. So lean into those things more where we know, hey, just leaning that direction and taking advantage of that. Then you add in the fact that you have Josh Allen, you have Stephon Diggs, you've added in this new dynamic. And your point on play action, I think the analytics crowd is right on the whole, but what they're not talking about is when you have a team like Buffalo that is so good passing the ball and so average running the ball, of course they're going to lean further that direction. If you now add in more of an actual threat, when Josh Allen puts the ball in Latavius Murray's belly and we have 2 tight ends out there and they know that, oh my God, they're going to be able to convert, and then he pulls it out, it's more of a threat for those linebackers and those safeties having to check on it, and then he pulls it back out and can throw versus, hey, we hope you hand it off to the guy that's there because we would, no matter who it is, we'd rather you hand it off than go back here. It's a win. Getting some level of threat there really can help. And I think that leaning in, just give me more of the easy button stuff. And I'm not saying it has to be, obviously in the Super Bowl, seeing Andy Reid scheme up, gimme touchdowns where guys walked into the end zone. That's great. I'd love some of that too.
Yeah.
But just get me, I don't need razzle dazzle. I don't need, trick plays. Those are fun, but that's not, those are, those are 5 or 6 plays out of 1,000 in the season.
Right.
I want over and over again, smash the easy button for stuff that we know works, lean into those things, and then let Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs be the difference. Don't force them to be the difference in spite of the fact that you're going away from easy stuff.
Yeah. So I've heard people talk about it. Do you believe Ken Dorsey's seat is hot? in year 2, or like I could see if the wheels fall off. However, sure.
Yeah,
But if he has similar success to a year ago,
yeah. It's exactly. I've talked about this with Sean McDermott, with Brandon Bean, Ken Dorsey. They're all in the same boat. Like, if everything goes haywire and Josh Allen is healthy and we miss the playoffs, everyone should be in question. I would be okay if anyone's fired. Like, if we go that wrong with this much talent and it's not Josh Allen injury related, everybody should be in question. Everybody's seat should be
although if Diggs gets
hot
hurt,
enough.
I will.
Don't get me wrong.
Those would be the two. Yeah,
there's
yeah,
caveats. If Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs play 14 plus games, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Everyone should be in question. I
Mhm.
won't. I'll probably argue for some people more than others. Everything above there is a gradient above there. If we are top 5 in offense again and make the playoffs as a dangerous team and kind of, get eliminated earlier than we should again, hard questions will be asked, and that will probably start the hot seat for the next year.
Right.
I don't think people are going to get fired over that, even though there'll be a lot of frustration, and I'll be mad again if we get eliminated earlier than we should, and those things happen. If we win the division again and win a playoff game and win a shootout in the division round or go to the AFC Championship and lose again, and it's frustrating and it's to Patrick Mahomes again, like, it's going to suck, but nobody's getting fired. No one's going to get fired over that. Like, it's just, that's what happens now. You're in that tier of really good stuff, and anything above there, if we win a Super Bowl, they'll build statues of everybody, and they're going to have contracts for life. Yep. So, there's a gradient of all those different things. I don't, short of something truly surprising, which would be a healthy season from Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs with a subpar, like, hey, Allen and Diggs are healthy and we have the 12th best offense. Okay. Now all of a sudden, yeah, we got to ask questions, and I'd be okay if they say, hey, we gave it a shot. We tried to keep, they obviously leaned into Ken Dorsey because there was a level of continuity and trust with Josh Allen, not because he was unequivocally the best candidate available. They didn't cast a net. They didn't search for, like, hey, who is the best offensive mind available? They very specifically said, hey, we think we have a candidate in-house. We don't need to cast a net. We're going to stick with continuity. If we now take a sizable step back and we still make the playoffs, but it's despite the offense and it's clunky and struggling, okay, then I could see it, but it would have to be something to that degree, that healthy Allen and Diggs outside the top 10 in offense, and we're winning despite that. And all of a sudden it's, hey, we gave it a shot, but we need a new voice in here. We need a new play caller.
Yep. Makes sense.
And, fortunately for the Bills, having a job opening of, hey, do you want to call plays for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs is going to get an awful lot of resumes. So,
I mean, they have one in house. Brady will just,
Joe Brady will
happily call those plays. Right.
So we'll see where that goes.
So I said to you in this when we were coming up with how are we going to break down this show and make it a full hour instead of just talking about Josh Allen for 15 minutes and without getting into every single positional coach here and grading those guys. For you, which positional coach going into this year has the most to prove underneath the guys we just talked about?
So I debated back and forth of what's there. And for me, for this year, I think I'm going to go with Aaron Kromer in that he's been given a lot of new toys. He's been given new pieces. He's going to have a healthy offseason with Spencer Brown, and we need it to come together. We need him to figure out who the right combination of 5 is. We need him to fix Spencer Brown, and protecting Josh Allen is the number one thing. Like, I don't want to rattle off other names of guys you might pick. Like, there are logical reasons I could pick a handful of other people, but I'm going to go with Aaron Kromer in that protecting Josh Allen and utilizing, whether it could be David Edwards, it could be sticking with Bates, it could be Osiris Torrance, it could be Ike Bacher, it could be Bates threatening Spencer Brown. Just find the right combination of 5, find that 6th guy who can come in as the jumbo set offensive lineman and let them gel and bring it together and protect Josh Allen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to make that pick, but protect Josh Allen was like my movement just a couple months ago. So I don't disagree that that's a good one. For me, it's going to be Eric Washington. And it
That
was
was my debate.
it was an easy choice for me. He's been here since 2020. I can't say that he's led to the development of any of the young assets that they've given him. And we talk about Cromer getting a lot of assets. I don't know that anyone's been given more than
Certainly not draft and Von Miller.
Ed Oliver. You got Basham, Epinesa, Groot. Then you go and make a huge swing for Von Miller. Obviously, Von Miller is going to be good regardless of who the coach is. And a lot of these vets, so he hasn't really developed anyone. Maybe we can give him a little bit of credit for Groot has developed nicely. I think
just going to say Rousseau's probably the only one who has performed at or above the expectation.
Yeah, like I'm ready to pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's a part of the future of this team. I can't say the same for AJ Epinesa. I can't say the same for Boogie Basham. I can't say the same for Ed Oliver, unfortunately. And then you look at the other guys that they brought in. Those guys I don't think have gotten better. No. They came in as veterans throughout the league and they've performed well. Daquan Jones had a good year.
Settle played worse for us than he did for Washington.
Sure. Jones played real well, but I don't know that it was
Eric Washington played the way he was supposed to play.
Yep. And so somebody needs to step up here. I need to see a big year from a Basham. I need to see a big year from an Epinesa and Ed Oliver. One of these guys that's going to go off and get another contract and Bills are going to get a comp pick needs to be because Eric Washington developed one of them.
New assistant defensive line coach Marcus West.
Yeah,
maybe that's the key.
Maybe that's maybe he's going to be the guy to do it. But that's the one to me. It just he got the promotion to the senior defensive assistant, and it's hard for me too because I don't like to place too much blame. I'm sure he's a good coach. Von Miller speaks highly of everyone, but he's spoken highly of him. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. All I can say is from the fan perspective that I have, and I'm a little bit more than a fan. I cover the team. I watch this team very closely. I look at it. I just haven't seen high assets like an Ed Oliver and Basham and Epinesa. You expect more. And out of 3 of those guys, none of them meeting their expectations is a bit of a red flag for me.
I think it's very well stated, and he was my debate for the 2. I think you can talk about Adam Henry stepping into big shoot. Why can't I think of the wide receiver coach's name from last year that everybody loved that they bought him a truck?
Now that you just said that, I would have had it totally.
Somebody in the chat, I'm having a total brain fart. Someone in the chat's going to tell us here in a second. But like Adam Henry stepping into a spot with some high expectations to be able to
Chad Hall. Yeah.
Chad Hall. Good Lord. Stepping into Chad Hall's spot, I think that's some high expectations. I think that there's, Rob Boris being able to develop not only a $14 million tight end, but also a first-round pick. To be able to be in that spot. So there's guys who have some pressure and need to do it. But I think on the offense, Aaron Cromer, and on the defense, Eric Washington makes total sense. And you say it all the time, the game is still won in the trenches.
Yeah, I think another Kelly Skipper, the amount of assets that they've put into that running back room, and Cook coming into a big year too, leap that you want to see go from him. They've given him a lot of assets. But yeah, for me, it's still definitely Eric Washington.
Yeah. All right. I think that this actually became a better conversation than we
dragged this out longer than we thought.
We always do. So we appreciate everybody in the chat. This has been a ton of fun. We're going to do this all off season long, going through each position as we go through, talking about the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, everything coming up in the coming weeks here. So really excited to be able to talk through that with everybody and get you guys ready, leading all the way up through these OTAs, through the mandatory camps, all the way up to training camp. It's going to be a ton of fun, and Cover One's going to be there with you the entire time. Make sure you check out our entire lineup, all the shows that we have going, the Skies coverage, Going Deep, the Air Raid Hour, all the guys doing all the different work, Eric's film room, everything that's available. We're going to be ready for you. Any final thoughts for the people, Aaron?
Yeah, not really. You got anything good going on for Memorial Day weekend? Crept up on me here. It's looking beautiful here in Western New York. So you doing anything good over in your area?
We got a surprise 60th birthday party for my aunt down in Columbus. Going down to see her, and
Columbus is a nice city.
Yeah. So we're gonna head down there and have some fun.
I get to hang out with Chris Kepner, and I are going to go golfing.
That's awesome.
This weekend.
Very cool.
That's it, baby. It's not going to be pretty for me, but it'll still be fun.
Hey, that's fine. You'll have a good time anyways.
That's it.
But speaking of which, on behalf of our fantastic producer, Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One